Welcome to War Room Impeachment Sunday, the 12th of January, the year of our Lord 2020. You say 2020 or 2020, Jason?
You can go either way.
Yeah, I go 2020. This is episode 109 of War Room Impeachment. I'm Raheem Kassam. Jason Miller joining me in the historic Breitbart Embassy here on Capitol Hill. We have a lot to talk about today, including the latest tweets from President Trump about Iran, the latest poll numbers coming out of Iowa, the latest from the royal family as Prince William now throws down against his soon-to-be estranged brother, Prince Harry, and a lot more to do with the impeachment process. It is another big week finally coming forward on impeachment, as Nancy Pelosi signaled at the end of the last that she was due to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate this coming week. We are on the John Fredericks Radio Network, America's Voice.news, Salem Broadcast Network, Newsmax TV, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, Spotify. Am I missing anything here, Jason?
I think you have them all.
I think I have them all.
Yeah.
I think, and by the way, I was checking over the course of last week. If you have any other podcast apps besides the ones I named, War Room Impeachment is actually available on all of those as well. Luminary. There's all of these different ones. Apparently, you can get it everywhere. So make sure you download, subscribe, and leave us a review. Stephen K. Bannon is on assignment today in New York, New York. He'll be on the Sunday Morning Future Show with Maria Bartiromo after this show, after War Room Impeachment. So make sure you check that out on, is Fox News? Fox Business?
Fox News Channel.
Fox News Channel. So wherever you get the Fox News Channel, you'll be able to get beautiful Stephen K. Bannon on your televisions at 10 a.m. Right, Jason, let's roll up the sleeves and dive right in. What's the biggest thing standing out for you this weekend?
So I think the biggest thing, this is impeachment week that is coming up after Speaker Pelosi's needless delay, where she's lost a lot of support of her own Democratic members. Also, her other Democratic members in the media have turned on her somewhat as well. And so it looks like they're going to get together on Tuesday, have their House Democratic Caucus meeting, and then finally vote out these. They've already passed the articles, but they have to send out the procedural measure to then send it to the Senate. But they also have to put forward their impeachment managers. And this is one thing where we're hearing some growing questions about who Pelosi is going to come up with. And this will be interesting to see who she sends forward as the Democratic House impeachment managers to the Senate. Everyone assumes that Shifty Adam Schiff will be one of them, probably the ringleader. Hakeem Jeffries, Democratic congressman from New York, seems to be on that list. But where Pelosi goes after that, other than the fact that Jerry Nadler will be nowhere near the House impeachment manager, that's a question. But also, too, there's the question of then who exactly does President Trump put out there in addition to Pat Cipollone and Jay Sekulow? Which of the House members will we see add to the mix? But also, what is the Senate going to do as far as the actual structure and format? We expect it to be very similar to what Bill Clinton had 20 years ago, which basically means no witnesses. I mean, just to cut right to the chase. President Trump even said on his interview with Laura...
This is just trying the case as it has been made in the House.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes, with no witnesses. And if you remember back to the Clinton days, they essentially did it in two parts. They went through and each side did their opening presentations. And then it flipped over and they ended up to go and have videotape depositions from several witnesses, Monica Lewinsky, Vernon Jordan, et cetera. So what we're expecting to have a similar format here, but President Trump said in that interview with Laura Ingraham Friday evening that he expects this entire trial to be a matter of days or maybe a week. So that basically says no witnesses. I know President Trump said he wants to have the whistleblowers, Joe and Hunter Biden, all of them, but if this is going to be a few days or a week process, that means no witnesses.
Two questions that stem from that, and thank you, by the way, because there's a lot of things going on there right now, a lot of fog around this process, and I think that was a very succinct way of summing up what we can expect this week. Two questions for the audience. Number one, what is an impeachment manager? People keep hearing impeachment manager, impeachment manager. These people effectively serve as the prosecution staff, correct? What is their role, and why does Nancy Pelosi keep hiding behind impeachment manager? I don't know the impeachment managers. I don't know who they're going to put up as impeachment managers. We don't know the process yet. We don't know the rules. She's held this up for a very long time, frustrating a lot of people, frustrating the president, frustrating the American people, frustrating many in her own party. And she keeps saying impeachment managers, impeachment managers. Just explain to our audience a little bit, why is this so important? And how in this coming week will that get resolved? And why has it taken to this point to get there? Is it purely a political consideration from Nancy Pelosi that she's been waiting, biding her time, trying to get more out of John Bolton, to say he'll go up there and book deal Bolton, as you call him, to go up
Thanks
there
for beating me to that one.
and testify? Or is this something actually, procedural that maybe we don't understand, that there's some problem with the impeachment managers and the rules process?
So this is one of the interesting things that for as massive and important as something like an impeachment of the president of the United States is, the Constitution really doesn't give us that much guidance. It basically says that it's a jury by the Senate, or the Senate's the jury, says that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will be the presiding officer, essentially, and then it says it's a 2/3 level for removal. And so that's basically it. And so the Senate then sets the rules in the construct. And so what Nancy Pelosi, realizing that once these articles of impeachment leave the House, her power is effectively gone over this process. So this is the House trying to flex, and we have the separation of powers here in the U.S., the judiciary and the legislative and the executive, but there's also a separation of the powers between the House and the Senate. And this is where I think Pelosi is overstepping her bounds. So the action, Raheem, to put this, is all in the well of the Senate. You will have Adam Schiff and Hakeem Jeffries and, potentially somewhere from 3 to 5 more House impeachment managers laying out the case for the prosecution. And then you'll have whoever President Trump puts up in the defense. And so all of the action is in the well of the Senate. All 100 senators are effectively the jury, and they have to pass notes to each other, and they, raise their hands and do things.
They can't tweet.
Right. They can't tweet. But here's the thing that's where I think a lot of folks are kind of missing things. This is a made-for-TV event, and so it might be a little more Robert's Rules, structured and oriented, a little more buttoned up, a little bit more formal. You won't have quite some of the splash that you did back over on the House side, but it's every bit as much a 100% televised, made-for-TV event. And this is where I think we're heading for a big explosion. There's no way that President Donald Trump is going to sit there while Adam Schiff and the rest of the folks pummel him for hours in a row without pushing back. And this is where I think that we're going to see a much different impeachment than anything we've ever seen previously. Okay. Well, also there wasn't Twitter last time, but so I can't imagine he's going to be quiet here.
Okay, great. Great way for me to segue into my second question. We haven't discussed this before, so that was just perfect. The second question being, the interview with Laura Ingraham, President Trump's interview, he says, I would like to see a full trial. I would like to see these people going up as witnesses. Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, talked about Hunter Biden at the rally. Where's Hunter? I've changed his first name to Where's, all of this stuff. If that is the case, how can he at the same time say, I want a full trial, and also say it'll be over in a few days? Those two things they don't work together. You can't have a full trial in a few days. Where do you think the president's mind is on this? Do you think he's more inclined towards a full trial, and it's more like the team around him and the leadership in the Senate who want to get it over and done with? Or maybe is he undecided?
No, I think President Trump very much wants a trial, but the Senate has told him, and when I say Senate, that means Senator Mitch McConnell, has told them, you are going to take this and you're going to like it. If you want to keep Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski and Willard Mitt Romney and the other folks on board, we're going to get this over. We've debated on here, Raheem, you had a great point the other day about why senators might not really want to have a trial. But I also think, too, that many of these senators who are at heart never Trumpers, they ultimately think that President Trump probably did something wrong here. And so they want to get this done. They want to get this over because they think the more you keep peeling back the layers of the onion, that there's going to be something problematic. Where they're falling short, in my opinion, is that if we don't go and snuff this out now, if we don't go and expose the whistleblower, Adam Schiff, the Bidens, all the corruption, what this is, the whole issue of Ukrainian corruption at the beginning, Democrats won't stop with this impeachment. They're going to keep on going.
It's another, and maybe it won't be Ukraine next time. Maybe it'll be a different foreign country next time that they take umbrage with President Trump taking a different foreign policy process towards. That's what this has all been about, right? I mean, at the beginning of his presidency, he fundamentally changed the rules, said America first, not handing over hundreds of billions anymore, whether it's on pallets of cash or in loan agreements or whatever it is. He changed it. The entire establishment status quo said, we don't like that. We don't want that. We have made our entire livelihoods off of this NGO, non-governmental think tank, what do they call it, the DC policy community sphere. They foresaw, and rightly, that if President Trump is allowed unabated to drain the swamp, and that implies to foreign policy as much as it applies to domestic policy, that all these people would be out on their ears. All of the people I mean, ladies and gentlemen out there, don't just take my word for it. After the show, do your own research. That's the power of this audience. They do their own research. I get the tweets all day long, as I'm sure you do, of people digging things up. Look at how big the tangential foreign policy community in Washington, D.C. is. Look at how far that stretches across the country. All these people, I mean, effectively, they see President Trump as an existential threat against their grifterism that has existed here in Washington, D.C., and indeed around the country, and indeed in Brussels and London, all around the world for decades and decades. So they're not going to stop. Next one, maybe Iran. Where given, I mean, without taking it fully onto Iran right now, and we'll pivot to that in a moment, but the processes we've seen it over the last week or so, from the killing of Soleimani to the response from the Democrats, to the response from the DC foreign policy quote-unquote experts, to now what we're seeing on the streets of Tehran. I mean, this has been a complete failure of foreign policy foresight from the people that we're told, Jason, are the foremost experts. And guess who looks like he's been right all along? It might have been messy. It might have been dirty. It may have been a little bit touch and go there for a minute. But President Trump looks like he's in the right. You have protesters on the streets of Tehran. Are the Democrats, do you think, considering how they add a new article of impeachment, or maybe proceed with a new impeachment process on Iran after this?
Well, so this is a great question, because the Democrats are never going to stop with their permanent impeachment party efforts. And so they will push for impeachment after this with regard to Iran. They will go after what was told to them or not told to them at briefings. They will go to every statement. They will try to come up with some aspect of an obstruction of justice. They'll try to come aspect of lying to the American public. They will never stop. And so they're trying to collect this. But there's a bigger thing that's going on here with the effort to force Don McGahn to go and testify. And so the House has subpoenaed Don McGahn. The White House has exerted executive privilege, which the president has also said that if Bolton is ever subpoenaed, which he has not been, book deal Bolton, he just playing that up so he can sell more copies of the book. But
which book?
That's a book that he's going to get paid on.
The Phantom book.
Yeah, exactly. The Phantom book that, he'll have, I don't know what he's going to call it, but he's going to get paid whatever he's doing. And the Javelin guys are master marketers.
We should have something on. We should have a bet on the show of what he calls it. Let's think to ourselves over that over the next couple of days, and let's lay a marker down over what John Bolton calls his next book. I reckon
is it My Mustache and My Legacy?
I reckon it's something like Mr. Ambassador or something like that,
Anyways, but here's an important point for folks at home, and this is why this matters. What the Democrats are going to do is try to take this to the Supreme Court. And it probably will go all the way to the Supreme Court, the issue of executive privilege. Yep. What they want to do is try to pierce this, because if they can pierce executive privilege, then they're going to go back to the Russia hoax. Yep. They're going to go all the way back to the beginning, the nullification project at the very beginning. And that is their long game. That is their long con. So, and they've already filed that in federal courts, or in the federal court, on the effort to go after McGahn, that they want to ultimately go back and see if executive privilege applies. So there could be future articles of impeachment for the Russia hoax. There could be future articles of impeachment very specific to this current impeachment witch hunt about Ukraine, if they come up with more details or more emails, or they think things might be. But then I definitely think they're going to take this to Iran. Basically, they want to keep this cloud lingering over President Trump for the next 5 years plus that he's in office.
Okay, this is War Room Impeachment, episode 109 from the Breitbart Embassy here on Capitol Hill. Got Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam in studio. Stephen K. Bannon is on assignment for Fox News Channel at 10 a.m. with Maria Bartiromo, Sunday Morning Future. So make sure you don't miss that. Immediately after War Room Impeachment, we'll be reminding you just before we go off air. Jason, anything else on impeachment directly in this coming week and the process this week before we pivot to the Iran stuff and the Democrat debates coming up? There was some Iowa polling, I think you wanted to mention?
Yeah, so some new polling out. So CNN has polling out specific to the state of Iowa. They're starting to drip the numbers out, so I imagine what they're going to do. So CNN's hosting the debate, Democratic debate on Tuesday. Keep in mind that we're only right now 22 days away from the Iowa caucuses for the Democrat side. So I imagine later today they'll have more polling maybe on President Trump and general election matchups matchups or something like that. And then I imagine tomorrow on Monday, they'll put out their pre-debate polling numbers for the Democrats. But here is where there's good news. They asked the question about what this, again, polling specific to Iowa, which is a swing state. 48% said that President Trump should not be removed from office, while only 40% think he should be. This is pretty big. Now, I was a swing state. Bush won it once. He lost it once. Obama won it both times. So this is, this is a swing state. Trump won it pretty, I'd say, with a decent margin, 2016. But it's very much up in the air. I mean, this is a tough state to win. And this is showing that the public opinion is moving away from Pelosi and the House managers. And this is, I think, largely a product of one. I think, look, people are pretty smart. They can see that there's nothing there, as Jonathan Turley says. These are wafer-thin articles of impeachment. But these numbers have to be a shot across the bow to Democrats. So when you see these national polls that show effectively at a 50-50, like if you go to the Real Clear Politics rolling average, it's like 47.4% say don't remove the president, 47.2% say do remove him. But those are all national. That's adding in California, New York, and a bunch of liberal bastions. But when you go to the swing states where it matters, impeachment's not popular.
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Good news as far as I think the president is concerned. Very bad news as far as Nancy Pelosi is concerned. When you say, just recap very quickly before we pivot, when you say they're meeting on Tuesday to talk about this, the Democrat caucus is meeting on Tuesday, when do we expect then the articles to be sent to the Senate?
Articles, we imagine that's probably a Wednesday or a Thursday. And then the Senate will have to act right away, essentially by noon that next day, to go and say what they're doing. Are they taking up immediately? Are they setting it for, are they going to set that trial to start maybe next Tuesday? Keep in mind, a week from Monday, a week from tomorrow is MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day. And so government offices will be closed and such. I would expect that the Senate immediately sets that trial to truly begin in earnest, maybe on that Tuesday, the 21st, or Wednesday, the 22nd, right around there. And that's when things will really kick off. The other question, too, is, there are a lot of questions right now. Are the Democrats really ready to go on this? There's also the question, to what extent is Senator McConnell and House Republicans, are they truly ready with everything drawn up and ready to go to start this thing? So I think probably in earnest, the actual trial itself will be underway next week. We'll see it actually sent out from the House probably Thursday of this week.
Okay, answer your own question. Do you think they're ready?
Ish. Probably ready-ish. And there's actually a pretty good article in the New York Times this morning to this very point that went back and spoke with a number of the House Republican managers from 20 years ago. And kind of the net of the story is you have a lot of work ahead of you. This is a very big thing, and there's a lot more here than you probably realize you need to be prepared and expecting. Now, I'm assuming that Pelosi has already gone around and done the tap on the shoulder of everyone she wants to be there. They've been thinking about this. But how much time they spend on the statements? Are they ready for the in-trial pivots that are going to be needed? And also, too, I do think this is where I think Pelosi and the Democrats will think of a couple of surprises to throw out in the mix, and this is why we have to be ready to punch back in the middle of the trial as well.
Yeah, and who knows where the wobbly Republicans will go as well. We can't take anything for granted in this process. So we'll be watching it closely here on War Room Impeachment. There's a big week coming. Make sure you're tuned in. I believe, would I be breaking news to say that we're going to be doing 2 shows every day this week? A morning show and an afternoon show?
Won't stop, can't stop. We'll be 2-a-days this entire week.
Did I just commit us to something that we weren't committed to already? I think probably 5 p.m.s and as well as the 9 a.m.s War Room Impeachment specials all of this week to keep you guys updated with everything that's going on here on Capitol Hill with the impeachment process. Is a very, very important week. And remember, at the beginning of this whole thing, a lot of people said this isn't going anywhere. It's going to get thrown out immediately. The whole thing will be done by mid-November, early December. It didn't turn out to be the case. This is turning out to be a key election issue. You're going to want to pay attention. If you want to pay attention, hey, Jason, what's the website? I get to do that this time.
You get to, yes. warroom.org. And most important, subscribe to the podcast. It's free. You can do it easily on Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Luminary, Google Play, all of them. Website or the podcast subscriptions are going through the roof, so we're very thankful that people are clicking on and having it come right to their feed every single day. So go to iTunes and do that today.
I get a lot of people who say to me, why do you always repeat where people can listen to it? They're already, of course, listening to it. So they know where to get it. And I would say, yeah, but you're supposed to then take that information, tell your friends. You're also supposed to subscribe because it pushes us up the rankings on the iTunes charts. You're supposed to leave a review of the show. And we really love our reviews, so much so that in the last week I've taken to pulling the most eloquent reviews and putting them in our daily newsletters so that people can forward them out and share with people.
And I think there's an important point, too, is that media folks look at rankings of these sorts of things for an indication of where the base is, where people are. And so right now we have, your Crooked Medias, your New York Times, people like that who obviously have pretty big podcast bases. And media looks at that, okay, the Democratic base is very fired up. We want to show that Trump supporters are very fired up as well.
Wow. And I have some more news to break for you right now, Jason. Over the course of the last 24 hours. And I didn't know we were going to do this, but since we're talking about the podcast, I loaded up our analytics on it. Over the last 24 hours, we passed 1 million downloads on the podcast alone. That doesn't include the live listens, the live radio show, the Newsmax television, the America's Voice.news, the Facebook live streams. Those are all separate. This is just purely on the podcast, Apple iTunes, and all that. So congratulations, Jason Miller.
That's pretty impressive. 1 million downloads?
That's a high number.
We need to make sure Steve mentions that on Maria Bartiromo coming up at 10 a.m. on Sunday Morning Futures.
We'll make sure you text him during the break to make sure he mentions it. Okay, look, breaking news out of the Sunday shows this morning. Defense Secretary Mark Esper says he believed an attack against the United States was imminent and, quote, days away ahead of the strike against Qasem Soleimani. That was on CNN this morning. The president tweeting over the last 24 hours in Persian, to the brave and suffering Iranian people, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my government will continue to stand with you. We are following your protests closely. Your courage is inspiring. And another one, the Iranian government should allow human rights groups to monitor and report on the current reality of the protests of the Iranian people. We should not see the peaceful killing of protesters again. All the internet shut down. The world is watching. And the final one this morning, quickly before we go to break, to the leaders of Iran. Do not kill your protesters, in all caps. Thousands have already been killed or imprisoned by you, and the world is watching. More importantly, the USA is watching. Turn your internet back on and let reporters roam free. Stop the killing of your great Iranian people. This is War Room Impeachment. Raheem Kassam, Jason Miller. We'll be right back after this short break.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Impeachment, Sunday, the 12th of January, 2020, broadcasting live out of the historic Breitbart Embassy here on Capitol Hill, just steps away from where Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, to some extent Jerry Nadler, and the gang orchestrated the impeachment process against President Trump. The week to come will be interesting indeed. We're going to be doing 2 shows every day, 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. here at warroom.org. And, of course, with all of our partners, America's Voice.news, Newsmax TV, Salem Broadcasting Network, and all the rest. John Fredericks Radio Network and all the rest. And every show will be available, as every other show is available and has been available on SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook Live, the whole lot. We do all the heavy lift here. All we ask that you guys do is listen and share. Perhaps get an email up today, send it around to your colleagues and friends. We covered a lot of what we expect to see in the impeachment process. Jason Miller and I here in the War Room in the first part of this show. The next week to come, the Tuesday meeting with the Democrats, when we expect the articles to be moved, and what happens after that. And we'll be getting into all of that over the course of the week. Also, teed up this portion of the show by reading out President Trump's tweets about Iran ahead of the Sunday shows. Of course, a very important time in the Washington, D.C. and national news cycle. I want to play a clip from Defense Secretary Mark Esper talking about the attack on Qasem Soleimani and the rationale behind it.
Imminent. You have not, as far as I can tell, used the word imminent to describe these attacks. Several other administration officials have. Do you think you believe the threat was real? Do you believe it was imminent?
In my definition, yes. I think that the attack was days away. He had a proven track record of executing attacks and killing Americans. It was going to be in multiple sites. It was described as being much bigger. I think for all those reasons, and the fact that a senior intelligence official said the risk of inaction is greater than the risk of action.
Right.
Compelling for me.
That's what Gina Haspel, the director of the CIA, said according to the New York Times. So you're basically confirming that. So here's a question for you. What you're describing sounds like an all-out declaration of war by Iran. If Iran were to attack the U.S. embassy in Baghdad and also stage this widespread attack, and you believe it was going to happen within days, would that not be Iran launching the first shot in a war between the United States and Iran?
Well, look, Iran has been attacking the United States through its proxy militias for 40 years now.
Sure, of course, but on a lower level,
go
right?
Go back to last summer. I had to deploy 14,000 additional soldiers to the region since May. They shot down an armed drone. They were striking Saudi Aramco oil fields in the fall. They were seizing tankers. The scale and scope of attacks against our forces in the late fall had escalated considerably.
Absolutely, but you're describing a more grandiose, if you'll pardon the use of the word grandiose, a wider spread and more shocking and more bloody attack than the ones you just described. I mean, would that not be Iran declaring war on the United States if what you're saying is accurate?
Well, it could be. That's why I think the compelling action was to disrupt the attack by taking out Soleimani, a known terrorist leader of a terrorist organization who was on the ground meeting with another terrorist leader. Taking him out disrupted the attack. It also reset deterrence with Iran, and it made clear that we weren't going to tolerate this type of behavior.
You know how...
Okay, Jason, that was a prolonged clip with Defense Secretary Mark Esper from Jake Tapper's State of the Union on CNN this morning. A lot to unpack there. CNN, along with a lot of the rest of them, again, seeming to take not the Iranian line, but maybe at least a more apologetic approach to this, saying, look, if this intelligence is true, then that would have been a declaration of war by Iran, and we don't really see that as likely, or if it was likely, then, why not let the attack happen first and then strike back kind of thing? It was a very, very strange line of questioning, I think, there. But he was correct in saying that Defense Secretary Mark Esper has shied away from the use of the word imminent before. He did use the word imminent this morning, defined the word imminent as days away, and gave a sort of a more well-rounded explanation of Qasem Soleimani being on the ground, being in Baghdad than we've heard so far. What stood out to you there?
Well, first, I thought Tapper's question was just really weird about isn't this a declaration of war by Iran? Because, of course, they're going to do it from the proxies and all the different side groups and have it be the one step removed. But the thing where I've been harping on since literally the day that we got back in here after the strike to take out Qasem Soleimani was the fact that we didn't need to have an imminent threat to take him out. The fact that he's been on the U.S. terrorist watch list since 2005, UN Security Council list as an individual since 2007. You look at the recent embassy attack. You look at the hundreds of Americans killed from IEDs and other shenanigans, all the way to the hundreds of thousands who've been killed in the Middle East, including in Syria. If we had Soleimani in our sights, we are perfectly within our rights to go and take him out. And it's again, this wasn't just the U.S. The UN had frozen his assets and weren't allowing him to travel as well.
This goes back to the letter from Democrat Senators Ron Wyden, Mark Udall, Martin Heinrich, the letter from 2013 on the legitimate use of authority granted to the president. That was to do with Obama drone striking a U.S. citizen, Anwar al-Awlaki, in Yemen. They said this at the time. They said Mr. al-Awlaki clearly made a conscious decision to join an organized fighting force that was and is engaged in planning and carrying out attacks against the United States by taking on a leadership role in this organization, involving himself in ongoing operational planning against the United States, and demonstrating the capacity and intent to carry out these operations. He made himself a legitimate target for military action. That applies here. Almost verbatim, that applies here.
And Raheem, I got to say, you're the only person that I've seen out there hammering this over and over again. I'm glad that you are, because I think what President Trump and the White House should be doing is literally, I would just have the president do a series of 10 tweets of here's everything that President Obama said at the time. Here's the letter. You're quoting the senators, all the defense of it.
And by the way, the Attorney General weighed in at the time. A couple of years later, the Justice Department weighed in. They all said this was within the force that the president has at his behest to take out terrorist leaders against the United States. But somehow we've ended up in this situation. I wonder why. That CNN are asking questions like that of the defense secretary, that the Huffington Post's headline is Trump tied Soleimani hit to support from GOP hawks ahead of impeachment.
Yeah, and I think that's just BS. Now, both the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal had both originally reported this. And again, the reporters who are writing this for the Times and the Journal, they had someone who told them that this was true, or that this was their recollection or their description. But there is no way that President Trump was sitting there strategizing, saying, well, geez, if I just go and take out Soleimani, then that means that Willard Mitt Romney might be nicer to me during impeachment. That's idiotic. President Trump knows for a fact that these articles of impeachment are going to get dismissed, that he's not going to lose any Republicans. He's probably going to pick up several, potentially 2 or 3 Democratic senators. There's no way that President Trump doesn't think like that, doesn't operate like that, where if I go and do this, then maybe some senator will be nice to me when I need it. That's just not how he thinks. He's like, hey, I'm the president. I'm the big dog. I did nothing wrong. There must be someone within the orbit, some little leaking punk who went and said maybe that was their opinion of how they thought it would be. But President Trump said on the Laura Ingraham show on Friday that this was fake news, this is ridiculous, and just knowing how he thinks and how he operates, this report is inaccurate.
Yeah, if you're a little leaking punk out there, Jason Miller's coming after you. He will find you.
I will.
And he will.
Might take me a while, but I'll find you.
It's almost like, we've mentioned this before on the show, it's almost like every time you see these big stories with 18 bylines and the big header lead banner picture, whether it's the Wall Street Journal to the New York Times, it's almost those stories more often than the other stories, which are by individual reporters or dual bylines, which are just sort of routine, day-to-day, minute-to-minute political coverage. It's almost like these big stories often seem to have a number of buried leads, but a number of buried leads which are very spuriously sourced. Say associates. Associates is a very bad word for the press to use. They love to use senior administration officials. And if they don't use senior administration officials, the sourcing is really pretty shoddy. It's some guy in the basement in the EOB who just has a theory about what's going on, rather than some person senior in the West Wing who is read into these things, Jason.
Yeah, and I erroneously said that Maggie Haberman was one of the reporters from the New York Times. It was Peter Bacon, Ronan Bergman, David Kirkpatrick, Julian Barnes, and Alyssa Rubin, who wrote the story for the New York Times. And then over on the Journal side, you had Mike Bender, Michael Gordon Lubold, and Warren Strobel. So I believe that's a total of 9 reporters, that were working on these 2 different stories. But here's the reality. But again, going back to it, the definition of who is a senior administration official. And again, there's no quote from President Trump. There's no blind quote saying President Trump said the following. It's recollections or leaked things. I mean, if you're someone who really wanted to, maybe like anonymous, maybe like the whistleblower, if you're someone in this expanded NSC operation, and you want to try to find a way to undercut President Trump right now, maybe you're mad that President Trump is calling out your little pencil-necked friend, the whistleblower. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe you decide, hey, I'm going to go and leak this because I'm a quote-unquote senior administration official.
Wait, we don't know who the whistleblower is, so we don't know if his neck is a pencil or not.
No, but we do know that his lawyer really likes Disney and really likes Selena Gomez.
Got that Disney Plus super subscription.
Too soon. I hadn't thought of that as a good one.
The behind the scenes, the making of everything. Back to Iran. Okay, so the president is tweeting now in Farsi at the Iranian protesters, effectively saying giving a warning to the regime, to the mullahs, but also saying to the protesters, "We are following your protests closely. Your courage is inspiring." Let's take a step back for a second and not look at this through the lens of where the media wants us to look at this, which is impeachment. Was the Soleimani killing right and proper, and the authorization of force and the war powers? Forget it. Take a step back. These tweets alone are more than President Obama ever did to help Iranians throw off the yoke of their oppressive, fascistic, theocratic, censorious, barbarous leadership in that country. You had so many numbers of opportunities over the Bush administration, over the Obama administration, with ordinary Iranian people, like the people in Hong Kong, like the French yellow vests, like ordinary people all across the world who are rising up and saying, we don't want to be told, like you guys did back in 1776, we don't want to be told from some foreign capital or some remote oligarchy what to think, what to tweet, whether we're even allowed access to these things. And President Trump is really shining a light here in a way that the United States hasn't done in a very, very long time for this. How, to you, Jason, how big a step is this? How much will the heat be being felt by the mullahs right now? And let's talk a little bit. We have a phrase in the UK, I'm not sure if you have it here. We say an absolute mare, right? If you've had a nightmare, you've had an absolute mare, right? They've had an absolute mare of a week, the Iranians. A total disaster from before Soleimani killing, remember the embassy attack, they thought that would be another Benghazi. They thought they might kill someone. They knew what they were getting themselves into. Then you had the killing of Soleimani. Attempts to blame Trump and US foreign policy. Didn't work. Then you had, of course, the Ukraine air
176 innocent people that they shot down.
Yeah, an absolute disaster in a mare. And now you have these protests on the streets of Tehran and indeed around the country. Another absolute disaster as far as the regime is concerned. Could the Iranians, and there's not a lot of media out there who are talking about this, which is far more an important and interesting a story geopolitically than whether the president's associate said something to 8 reporters at the Wall Street Journal, right? There is the only one I've seen, Axios, that said, actually, we need to focus in on the absolute nightmare the Iranian regime has had as a result of all of this. Number one, talk to us about what you think about all of that, Jason. And number two, the more specific question, is this the end? Or is this the beginning of the end for the mullahs in Iran?
Yeah, it's a great setup and a great question there. So I want to take you back to last Wednesday when President Trump gave his remarks in the grand foyer there at the White House. And we talked about the stick when he put out there the maximum deterrence and the economic sanctions and reminding people that we have the biggest missiles, the best missiles. But one of the most important buried leads, and we talked about it here on the show, was the carrot that President Trump extended to the Iranian people. He reached out to them directly and said, we are with you, that we're supportive of you, that we know that you have good, freedom-loving people who just want to prosper and do better for your families.
You called that at the time. You said what a big deal that was.
That was a huge deal. For whoever came through in the administration said, let's go and actually tweet at them in Farsi, genius. Whoever that person is, give them a raise, bump them up to the, I know there's salary cap there at the White House, but, bump them up. This is huge. And in fact, there's an article, the Examiner just posted this morning, that President Trump's tweets are the most liked tweets ever in Farsi.
Wow.
So of all tweets ever been put out there in Farsi, this is it. And so the two that he did, the first one is at 77,000 retweets and 311,000 likes, and the other one's at 53,000 retweets and 226,000 likes. So this is a big deal. And and again, just to go through these, I know you run previously, but he said, to the brave, long-suffering people of Iran, I've stood with you since the beginning of my presidency, and my administration will continue to stand with you. We are following your protests closely and are inspired by your courage. And then he also said, the government of Iran must allow human rights groups to monitor and report facts from the ground on the ongoing protests by the Iranian people. There cannot be another massacre of peaceful protesters, nor an internet shutdown. The world is watching, as you said before. And then, of course, we saw the president said this morning, which is I'm pretty sure he wrote this one directly. He wrote this in English, though. To the leaders of Iran, in all caps, do not kill your protesters. Thousands have already been killed or imprisoned by you, and the world is watching. More importantly, the USA is watching. Turn your internet back on and let reporters roam free. Stop the killing of your great Iranian people. Which, by the way, here's President Trump defending reporters and freedom of the press.
Yeah.
And where's
Where's Jake Tapper celebrating? Where's Brian Stelter? Right? I wonder where's Brian Stelter.
In fact,
morning.
you know what? I think I'm gonna text Stelter. And say, Brian, I would like you to open up your show by reading this tweet.
Yes.
And talk about
if Brian Stelter doesn't have a glass of champagne and a party popper. Do you have party poppers over here?
New Year's.
The little
On New
things.
Year's.
Yeah. If he doesn't have one of those at the desk with him on his reliable sources show, then he's not doing his job. Because this is what he's asked for so long. He's demanded that the president, for 3 years, demanded the president stand up for reporters. And the president's doing it publicly and doing it against a dangerous theocratic regime. I want to see Brian Stelter celebrating that.
Absolutely. And although I'm going to just use my crystal ball and predict that we'll see crickets. But, you know.
The tweet stuff is a big deal. Javad Zarif, the Iranian foreign minister, barely gets about 5,000 retweets on his posts. And, you know, this is what happens when you ban your country from the internet and social media. We've only got a couple of minutes left here. So I want to pivot away from Iran and pivot to the upcoming Democrat debate very quickly. We've got about 2 minutes on that. Jason, what should we know? Mayor Bloomberg saying he'll spend $1 billion on this whole campaign. Tom Steyer joining the debate on Tuesday night. The Democrat platform has gone from being the struggle bus to then was the struggle bus originally, and then it was the witness protection program. Now it's the oligarchy.
Right. And we're getting ready to go into the impeachment trial where these senators who are running won't actually be able to leave to go to Iowa and New Hampshire. So in Iowa right now, 3 weeks until the Iowa caucuses, Crazy Bernie is in first at 20%, his first time in first. Pocahontas is at 17%. Mayor Pete is at 16%. And the buried lead that no one's jumping on, Joe Biden is stuck in fourth place in Iowa at 15%, the exact same place that he was in November. This is the real buried lead here. But things are setting up right now that you could have Bernie Sanders win both Iowa and New Hampshire.
Wow.
And that's why there's a Politico story out with Democrats. I slightly changed the headline, but my headline for the story is Dems freaking out over Bernie or Warren being their possible nominee. But I think Tuesday's debate is going to be big. But again, a lot of these senators, particularly Bernie and Warren, are going to be back here in Washington for the next couple of weeks.
And Michael Benet.
Yes. Bennett with one T, low T, soft T.
Low T Bennett is Benet as far as I'm concerned.
Raheem, I know we just have a couple of minutes, but I want to get to this burning question that everyone has because you're kind of our resident expert on the UK. What is going on with Megxit? What is the latest? And talk to us about this clip of the Queen pushing this G-Ride Range Rover, which here it is. It's Chamillionaire.
This is what the Queen plays when she drives her Range Rover around the Balmoral estate. Didn't you know?
It's either that or Tupac's "Picture Me Rolling." But I do think we'd get fined on the John Fredericks Radio Network if we played the unedited version. But I want to know what's going on with Megxit. Are they moving to Toronto? Is William going to beat up his little brother? What's going on here?
Just want to say one last thing on the Democrat debate side of things and the impeachment stuff. Is this whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, the holdup that Nancy Pelosi, it seems to be targeting one person now, and that one person isn't President Trump. For me, she's doing this whole thing to target Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders finds himself again at this nexus of Democrat establishment chicanery to keep him away from the presidency. This is my thoughts on that.
And it's not done there, because if Bernie is on track to capture this nomination, that's where you're going to see a crooked Hillary at the convention. That's where you're going to see Bloomberg. And when Bloomberg talks about that $1 billion, he doesn't give a S word about actually, going in and just helping the party. He wants to have an operation viable to come back and try to steal it from Bernie, just like they stole it from him in 2016.
Okay, Prince William, who everybody remembers when Princess Diana died, was right there for his younger brother, Prince Harry, had his arm around him. Knows full well about how the world looks at the two brothers as inseparable, and we watched them publicly come up through that whole tragedy. Has said over the course of the last few hours, I've put my arm around my brother all our lives, and I can't do that anymore. I'm sad about that. Remember, the royal family does not go public with very many things unless it is full on burn you to the ground. And this appears to be what is happening to Harry and Meghan right now. Following the Megxit announcement and following the latest that we're getting, that Meghan Markle has already signed a deal with Disney. Disney may well be the most nefarious force in the world right now, by the way.
Mark Zaid, if you're listening, I want to make sure you heard that.
Yeah, Disney is going to buy everything and launch its own country at some point. But Harry and Meghan very much on the outs. The Queen looks to be incensed, which is not something you usually see. The palace guards her feelings very cautiously. William doesn't make public statements very much. And so we're going to be having a lot of analysis on Megxit in the coming weeks and months, because this is really rocking the royal family to its core. Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon is going to be live with Maria Bartiromo Sunday Morning Futures on the Fox News channel in about 60 seconds time. So don't go anywhere. Thank you for joining War Room Impeachment. Make sure you download, subscribe, warroom.org. We'll see you tomorrow, 9 a.m.